Hey, welcome to the 175, channel dedicated to free thinking, clear thinking, and even common sense. We're here with EK5. He's asking me different questions. This is a whole series of different ones that we're putting on. Mainly because I've been getting lots of different questions all my life, and I'm teaching a class on questions, taking questions from the floor, and answering what I can in a very short amount of time on some pretty complicated and sometimes controversial issues. So, fire away. What's your question this time?
Okay, so I don't remember.
Oh,
I don't remember.
Are you?
Oh, I do
kidding
remember.
me?
I do. Okay, so if we are instructed to pray for those that are not saved, and God has an ultimate plan, how do we marry those two ideas of God being in ultimate control and preordaining before the foundation of the earth and all that, and yet we're also instructed to pray for the unbeliever? Well, and I guess the undertone is, can God change his mind? That's kind of the root question.
Okay, well, holy cow. There's like 5 big ones in there. So here's the bottom line. I don't think God changes his mind, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sure that the Calvinist position on predestination is correct. In particular, the elect. The elect in the Calvinist world says that God has already preordained those who would come to know Christ. Right?
Yep.
But that would argue against, for the most part, evangelism. Because why evangelize when God's going to make sure it happens one way or the other?
Why hold a church service ever?
But the Bible seems to say that we're not to understand the tension of that. This would be a Jeremy Pryor type of comment. But we're to live in that tension. And that you and I are to follow what God wants us to do. In this case, witness, share your faith, make people know about Jesus. Now, whether or not they believe or not, Wesleyans would argue, well, mankind has a damaged will, if you will, but it's not destroyed. Calvin said, no, your will is destroyed. You won't even seek God without God's help. You wouldn't even, you're completely worthless in that degree. They call it total depravity. Arminians argue that, which would be the Wesleyan position, that mankind has the ability to seek after God. It's just that they're not very good at it. In other words, they're marked by the fall. And ergo, they need people like you or others that would come and tell them. And then it's half of man's decision, half of God's decision. And therefore, the term elect is put on as a label after the fact, not before. In other words, not predictive in nature, it's post in nature. So it all depends on how you look at it. Now, let me just throw one other possibility in there. And again, we're talking this quite philosophically and theologically. There's lots of good people who disagree with all this. And I don't believe in open theism. I don't believe in process theism. I think that's all baloney. But I would argue that life is like an aquarium. It has glass walls everywhere. It has a frame. In other words, the fish can't get out of said water. You can go in the castle, go in the seaweed, float to the top, go to the bottom, bump up against the glass all day long. And only when God needs to does he stick his net into the aquarium to move something or someone out in order to make sure that his plan is afforded. And I do believe that's one reason why there's bad things happen to good people, is because inside that aquarium of life, which he doesn't typically touch detail, though in the macro sense he does, there's a lot of bad fish, and they do bad things. And then you got the Satan thing happening, the big grouper in the corner that's yelling and screaming, chomping everything. And he's got a whole bunch of henchmen on top of that. And then you have the fall. Fish are not necessarily doing the right things in the first place. So life is like an aquarium. There are rules and there's boundaries that God has placed inside. He touches different things at different times in order to affect his will. But I don't think that the fish are robots and they go everywhere they're supposed to go in some sort of hyper Calvinism where, like even us talking right now, is some sort of preordained thing. I don't buy that.
Yeah. So I once heard the analogy of a freeway with guardrails. Do you buy into that?
Close enough.
Choose whatever lane you want.
Close enough, but you can't get outside those guardrails.
Yeah.
Those guardrails will keep you in the play on the road. I would agree with that. That's why I don't worry about the planet. It will go where it's going to go, nuclear this, terrorist that kind of stuff. Because those guardrails are there. And whatever happens in the major macro sense, it's because it's part of the mosaic of life.
Very good.
All right. That's it for the 175. Questions. If you got any, put them in the comments. Subscribe if you'd like. And we'll try to answer when we get a moment. Take care. Talk to you later.